Saint-Sulpice is a Roman Catholic church in Paris, France, on the east side of the Place Saint-Sulpice within the Rue Bonaparte, in the Luxembourg Quarter of the 6th arrondissement. At 113 meters long, 58 meters in width and 34 meters tall, it is only slightly smaller than Notre-Dame and thus the second largest church in the city. It is dedicated to Sulpitius the Pious. Construction of the present building, the second church on the site, began in 1646. During the 18th century, an elaborate gnomon, the gnomon of Saint-Sulpice, was constructed in the church. History. The present church is the second building on the site, erected over a Romanesque church originally constructed during the 13th century. Additions were made over the centuries, up to 1631. The new building was founded in 1646 by parish priest Jean-Jacques Ollier, who had established the Society of Saint-Sulpice, a clerical congregation, and a seminary attached to the church. Anne of Austria laid the first stone. Construction began in 1646 to designs which had been created in 1636 by Christophe Gamard, but the Fronde interfered, and only the Lady Chapel had been built by 1660, when Daniel Guittard provided a new general design for most of the church. Guittard completed the sanctuary, ambulatory, apsidal chapels, transept, and north portal, after which construction was halted for lack of funds. Gilles Marie Oppenord and Giovanni Servandoni, adhering closely to Guittard's designs, supervised further construction. The decoration was executed by the brothers Sébastien Antoine Slots and Paul Ambroise Slots. In 1723 to 1724, Oppenord created the north and south portals of the transept with an unusual interior design for the ends. Concave walls with nearly engaged Corinthian columns instead of the pilasters found in other parts of the church. He also built a bell tower on top of the transept crossing, which threatened to collapse the structure because of its weight and had to be removed. This miscalculation may account for the fact that Oppenord was then relieved of his duties as an architect and restricted to designing decoration. West facade. In 1732 a competition was held for the design of the west facade, won by Servandoni, who was inspired by the entrance elevation of Christopher Wren's St. Paul's Cathedral in London. The 1739 Turgot map of Paris shows the church without Oppenord's crossing bell tower, but with Servandoni's pedamented facade mostly complete, still lacking however its two towers. Unfinished at the time of his death in 1766, the work was continued by others, primarily the obscure Audot de Maclaurin, who erected twin towers to Servandoni's design. Servandoni's pupil Jean Chalgrin rebuilt the north tower, making it taller and modifying Servandoni's Baroque design to one that was more neoclassical, but the French Revolution intervened, and the south tower was never replaced. Chalgrin also designed the decoration of the chapels under the towers. The principal facade now exists in somewhat altered form. Servandoni's pediment, criticized as classically incorrect because its width was based on the entire front rather than the size of the order on which it rested, was removed after it was struck by lightning in 1770 and replaced with a balustrade. This change and the absence of the belvederes on the towers bring the design closer in spirit to that of the severely classical east front of the Louvre. The facade is an unorthodox essay in which a double colonnade, Ionic order over Roman Doric with loggias behind them, unifies the bases of the corner towers with the facade. This fully classicizing statement was made at the height of the Rococo. Its revolutionary character was recognized by the architect and teacher Jacques-François Blondel, who illustrated the elevation of the facade in his Architecture Françoise of 1752, remarking, The entire merit of this building lies in the architecture itself, and its greatness of scale, which opens a practically new road for our French architects. Large arched windows fill the vast interior with natural light. The result is a simple two-story west front with 3 tiers of elegant columns. The overall harmony of the building is, some say, only marred by the 2 mismatched towers. Another point of interest dating from the time of the Revolution, when Christianity was suppressed and Saint-Sulpice became a place for worship of the Supreme Being, is a printed sign over the center door of the main entrance. One can still barely make out the printed words "Le peuple français reconnaît le très suprême et l'immortalité de l'âme." Further questions of interest are the fate of the frieze that this must have replaced, the persons responsible for placing this manifesto, and the reasons that it has been left in place. Interior: inside the church, to either side of the entrance of the 2 halves of an enormous shell given to King Francis I by the Venetian Republic. They function as holy water fonts and rest on rock-like bases sculpted by Jean-Baptiste Pergal. Pergal also designed the large white marble statue of Mary in the Lady Chapel at the far end of the church. The stucco decoration surrounding it is by Louis-Philippe Mouchy. Pergalet's work replaced a solid silver statue by Edmé Bouchardon, which vanished at the time of the Revolution. It was cast from silverware donated by parishioners and was known as Our Lady of the Old Tableware. The Baroque interior of the Lady Chapel was designed by Charles de Wael in 1774, after the chapel was badly damaged by a fire which destroyed the nearby Foire Saint-Germain in 1762. The dome, lit by natural light from hidden windows devised by de Wael, contains a fresco by François Lemoyne depicting the Assumption of Mary, which dates from 1734, although it has been restored several times since then. De Wael also designed the pulpit, completed in 1788. The oak canopy broadcasts sound very well, and it was from here that the parish priest of Saint-Sulpice declared his refusal to accept the civil constitution of the clergy. Revolutionary orators used it later also. During the Directory, Saint-Sulpice was used as a temple of victory. Redecorations to the interior, to repair extensive damage still remaining from the Revolution, were begun after the Concordat of 1801. Eugène Delacroix added murals that adorn the walls of the Chapel of the Holy Angels. The most famous of these are Jacob wrestling with the angel and Heliodorus driven from the temple. During the Paris Commune, one faction, called the Club de la Victoire, chose Saint-Sulpice as its headquarters, and Louise Michel spoke from the pulpit. The Marquis de Chardet and Charles Baudelaire were baptized in Saint-Sulpice, and the church also saw the marriage of Victor Hugo to Adèle Foucher. Louise Elizabeth de Bourbon and Louise Elizabeth d'Orléans, granddaughters of Louis XIV and Madame de Montespan, are buried in the church. Louise de Lorraine, Duchess de Bouillon, was buried here in 1788, wife of Charles Godefroy de la Tour d'Auvergne. Jules Massenet set and active his opera Manon here. The great organ. The church has a long-standing tradition of talented organists that dates back to the 18th century. In 1862, Aristide Cavalier-Coll reconstructed and improved the existing organ built by François-Henri Clicquot. The case was designed by Jean-François Thérèse Chalgrin and built by Monsieur Judeau. Though using many materials from Clicquot's French classical organ, it is considered to be Cavalier-Coll's magnum opus, featuring 102 speaking stops, and is perhaps the most impressive instrument of the Romantic French symphonic organ era. Its organists have also been renowned, starting with Nicolas Sagen in the 18th century, and continuing with Charles-Marie Widor and Marcel Dupré, both great organists and composers of organ music. Thus, for over a century, Saint-Sulpice employed only 2 organists, and much credit is due to these 2 individuals for preserving the instrument and protecting it from the ravages of changes in taste and fashion, which resulted in the destruction of many of Cavaillé-Coll's other masterpieces. The current organists are Daniel Roth and Sophie Veronique Horcheffer-Joplin. This impressive instrument is perhaps the summit of Cavaillé-Coll's craftsmanship and genius. The sound and musical effects achieved in this instrument are almost unparalleled. Widor's compositional efforts for the organ were intended to produce orchestral and symphonic timbres, reaching the limits of the instrument's range. Albert Schweitzer, his student and collaborator, despite initiating an Orgelbewegung or organ reform movement, which deplored many 19th-century developments, called this organ the most beautiful in the world. More recently, Stephen Bicknell concurred, pointing out that the full ensemble of many large organs is dominated by a few powerful stops, but at Sulpice many ranks, each of moderate power, contribute to a sound of dazzling complexity. With 5 manuals, keyboards, and boasting 2 32-foot stops, organists at Saint-Sulpice have an incredibly rich palette of sounds at their disposal. Aside from a rearrangement of the manual keyboard c. 1900, the installation of an electric blower and the addition of 2 pedal stops upon Widor's retirement in 1934, the organ is maintained today almost exactly as Cavaillé-Coll left it. In Saint-Sulpice, Sunday organ recitals are held on a regular basis. List of organists. The dates indicate when the player was organist titulaire: Nicolas Pescher, Vincent Copeau, Guillaume Gabriel Nives, Louis Nicolas Clarambeau, Circa François Clarambeau, Everett Dominique Clarambeau, Claude Etienne Luce, Nicolas Sagin, Louis Nicolas Sagin, Georges Schmidt, Louis James Alfred Lefebvre We'Acutely, Charles-Marie Widor, Marcel Dupré, Jean-Jacques Grunenwald, Daniel Roth. The choir organ. The church is also home to a fine choir organ, built by Daublain and Calanet in 1844. The choir organ of Saint-Sulpice was restored and enlarged by Cavaillé-Coll in 1857 to provide the church with a strong instrument capable of accompanying the large ceremonies of the seminary. It was again restored in 1903 by Mutin and has been preserved in that condition to the present day. JAV recordings. This organ allowed C.M. Widor to compose his Mass for 2 organs and 2 choirs. Combining the great organ with the choir organ, he created a beautiful example of antiphony. The gnomon. In 1727 Jean-Baptiste Languet de Gergy, then priest of Saint-Sulpice, requested the construction of a gnomon in the church as part of its new construction, to help him determine the time of the equinoxes and hence of Easter. A meridian line of brass was inlaid across the floor and ascending a white marble obelisk nearly 11 meters high, at the top of which is a sphere surmounted by a cross. The obelisk is dated 1743. In the south transept window a small opening with a lens was set up, so that a ray of sunlight shines onto the brass line. At noon on the winter solstice, the ray of light touches the brass line on the obelisk. At noon on the equinoxes, the ray touches an oval plate of copper in the floor near the altar, constructed by the English clockmaker and astronomer Henry Sully. The gnomon was also used for various scientific measurements. This rational use may have protected Saint-Sulpice from being destroyed during the French Revolution. Image gallery. Bibliography. Ayres, Andrew. The Architecture of Paris, Stuttgart, Axel Menschers, ISBN 9783930,698,967. Himmelfarb, Aline, Guitard, Daniel, Volume 12 p. 747 in the Dictionary of Art, edited by Jane Turner. New York, Grove, ISBN 9781884,446,009. See also at Oxford Art Online. Kaufman, Jean-Paul, Wrestling with the Angel, The Mystery of Delacroix's Mural, London, Harville, ISBN 9781843,430,179. Terrien, Lawrence, Translator, Saint-Sulpice, Paris, Perros Saint-Sulpice. OCLC 915,105,541.